Hi, good morning, everyone. It's great to be here, and thank you very much for giving us such a good welcome this morning. And we even got a cup of tea after we arrived, so that was good, wasn't it? Hey, so such a welcoming church. And I think you're getting the message about what it's all about, because I'm the chair of Through the Roof. Through the Roof? Well, you've had the story twice at least, and thank you, Naomi, for reading that story, Ability Sunday. Through the Roof is all about disabled people and other people being together. The vision of Through the Roof is all people enjoying life together, mutually giving and receiving as God intends. So that's a real together thing. And then the mission is transforming lives through Jesus with disabled people. Transforming lives through Jesus with disabled people. That's a together thing again. And it is good. I've seen some long-standing friends too. I won't say they're old. They might be a bit old, but some friends this morning. It's good to meet them again. Now, I'd like you to think. Oh, that might be hard. Okay, I hope it's not too hard. But think about what you like doing. What is it you like doing? I thought about this. I actually thought about it particularly coming in the car this morning. And I thought 4 things. Friends. Oh, well done. That's the title of today's service, really. Friends. And friends are great, aren't they? Do you like being with friends? Yeah, I do. All right. Who likes family? Being with family. We've just been up with our family. We've got 4 grandchildren in Durham, and we came back yesterday from helping them out with half term. And I'd like you to pray for our family. We've got 2 girls, 8 and 5, 1 boy, nearly 2, very mischievous. And 1 little lad, only 6 months, called Joah, Joah, who's only got half a heart. And so he's going to be going into hospital for his 3rd big operation, probably not next week, but the week after. So families are important. And then where do you like to go? What sort of things do you like doing? And I thought about it this morning. I love forests. Anyone like forests? Oh yeah, good. And I don't go hugging trees or anything, but I just enjoy forests and birds and the smells and the sound. And then the other thing I thought about as I was coming along was food. Yes, unfortunately, I like food. Anyone like food? Yeah, I thought so. Oh, well, that's a good one. I think that's one of the most popular. But in a good Baptist way, I ended up with 4 things beginning with F, wasn't it? Wasn't that funny? Yes. Friends, family, forests, and food. But you know, we're all different. Every single one of us is different. But God put a dimension into every single one of us. And that's in Genesis chapter 1 we read. So God created human beings in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. In his own image. Every single one of us, you, me, everyone we can think about, all human beings are created in God's image. Whether we're wealthy or poor, whether we're big and strong or small and puny, whether we have disabilities or not recognized disabilities, whatever our mental state is, we are created in God's image. Some of us look better than others, don't we? Maybe others don't look so good. I'm not going to get some audio description of you all. I can't see you, but maybe at lunch. I think we're having lunch together. Food, of course. We're going to have lunch later. Maybe I'll get some audio descriptions of some of you. Anyway, maybe we won't bother. However, I'd like you to look at your neighbour, your friend. I hope they're a friend. They might be. Next to you. And look at them and recognize that they are created in God's image. And that's true for my friends in Springboard here. We are all created in God's image. I'd like you to, if you're worried about touching, don't do it, but look and touch and say to your neighbor, You are made in God's image. Edith? I can't reach anybody. Edith, oh yeah, you are made in God's image. Thank you. Great. Now, isn't that good? And how do you think about looking at them now? Yeah, you are made in God's image. And you know, at that place in Capernaum, that seaside town, there were all sorts of people that came to be with Jesus. It says that they were at home. It calls that place Jesus' home, where Jesus was at home. And lots of people visited Jesus that day and pressed in. And some of them would have been tall. Some of them would have been small. Some of them would have been rather fat. Some of them might have been rather skinny. Some would have been good at cooking or building things. That could have been quite useful later, builders, you know, in there with the roof gone. However, some were good at other things, and some didn't like being in crowds, or didn't like this, or didn't like that. We are all different. Your likes and my likes are going to be very different. Your abilities and my abilities are going to be very different. But when Jesus returned to Capernaum after 7 days, it was reported that he was at home. Jesus was there at home, welcoming those crowds of people, pushing in all sorts of different kinds of people. But there was someone coming down the road who couldn't get in. Coming down the road, carried by 4 friends. 4 people were making sure that this person could get to Jesus. And they struggled all the way down that road. I don't know how heavy he was. Often when you have a disability, you don't get much exercise. My great-nephew is quite heavy now. He uses a wheelchair. And unfortunately, you don't do the exercise. You carry on eating, and you get a bit stronger and heavier. Anyway, I don't know how they were getting on with getting him down the road. But they got to where Jesus was, but they couldn't get in. The door was blocked. They could not get this man to Jesus' feet. No problem. Up on the roof we go. No barriers here. Up on the roof, dig a hole in the roof. And there he goes, down through the roof right to the very feet of Jesus. And that's the big thing about why we're called Through the Roof. It's to get anyone who needs to get to Jesus to Jesus. Anyone who needs to get to Jesus? Everybody! Hooray! Thank you very much. Hooray! It's everybody. And so we need to make sure, that's what we're doing with Through the Roof, is making sure that everybody can get to Jesus. But often disabled people find it hard to get to Jesus. As Alison said earlier, it's those barriers. Now, I don't know what the barriers you could think of are. Some of them you would think of, perhaps like ramps and getting through doors and up steps and things. I don't know if you can ever make a ramp up to this platform. I remember at another church I went to, they got a ramp because we had a wheelchair user preacher and he had to get up onto the platform. So I'm sure we could get something to deal with that. But think about the barriers. What are they? One of the barriers I have is reading. Thank goodness you haven't got any books here, but you've got these screens. I can't see the screens. So what do? Well, I'm actually reading from my little machine here, which is a Braille machine, and it's got the dots coming up here. So that's one of the barriers that I get removed with the help of Louis Braille, who invented Braille. I've also got a Bible, like the Bibles we give out from Through the Roof and our wheelchair project, Wheels for the World. That is a Bible. I'll start it up, if I can. There we go.
I have nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind.
There you are, that's a little Bible. We give them out in their local languages. Mostly we give them out in print, but when we give them a wheelchair, they will get something that they can use from a Bible point of view. But I'd like to look now at these people in this passage. And we're going to take another look, first of all, at the paralyzed man. There he is. He's got through the hole in the roof. He's down at the feet of Jesus. And you look down. Take a look. Look at him. His need seems very obvious, doesn't it? What would you say was the problem with that paralyzed man? Paralyzed? Yeah, probably. And often we don't see beyond that disability or whatever it is. Don't forget, I said, I'm made in the image of God. I bear God's stamp. But quite often when people see me coming in with my guide dog, I'm Mr. Blind. Yeah, that's the first thing they see. And they treat me as a Mr. Blind. And probably looking down at that paralyzed man, they think, oh yeah, there's Mr. Paralyzed. There he is, lying down there. He can't do very much at all. And they probably think, I can't do very much at all either. But do you know what? You and I, each one of us, and that paralyzed man lying down there, we're all special. Made in the image of God, and we've all got gifts, abilities, disabilities, all sorts of things that make us us. Now, what makes you, you? What makes me, me? And particularly in relationship to God. Was paralysis a key feature of that man's relationship with God, and a key part of his purpose for life? What did Jesus see when he looked down at the paralyzed man? The first thing he said was this: your sins are forgiven you. That's a strange thing to say to a paralyzed man, especially as he's lying there and thinking he could do with getting up. But that was the most important thing about that paralyzed man's life, was that he needed to have that link with God, and that really key barrier, the barrier of sin, our failures. God is perfect, we are imperfect. That barrier must go. Now, I can't tell you my story, it's too long, but that was a thing. I'm a bit of a scientist, and I read a book, actually a book by Billy Graham called Peace with God. I read it in Braille, and it told me that the reason I didn't know God was not because I'd tried hard to find him and not found him very well, was because I was separated from him by my failures, the things I'd done wrong, my sins. Bit of an old-fashioned word, but God is perfect and we aren't. And I said to God, is that true? Then please, and I prayed one Friday night, I asked God to remove that barrier of my sin and for me to experience the presence of the Lord Jesus, because he died on the cross and shed his blood for me to take away that barrier. And I told you I'm a scientist, a bit of a scientist, and you know what? The barrier went. And I felt the power of God overwhelming me that day. Now, I'm very blessed and fortunate to have that time to look back many, many years ago, over 50 years ago, but consequently I've never ever doubted God, because the barrier was so dramatically removed that day. Some of you don't have that. Edith, my wife, grew up in a Christian family, and she more gradually came to know Jesus in her life. But the important thing is that we know Jesus. We feel a friendship with Jesus. The barrier is gone, and we feel a friendship with Jesus. I love traveling, and we were in India. We've been to 131 countries. That's a lot of countries, isn't it? Anyway, we were in India, and I love traveling, and I was at breakfast in India, And this guy came over and he said, I can do something for you that's very important. I can heal you of your blindness. Well, it's enough to make you choke on your cornflakes, isn't it, when someone says that? But I said, well, that's interesting. And what if, I wondered if he was some sort of, although he was American, some sort of Indian freak, some kind of shaman or something like that. And I'm a Christian missionary, and I've come to help the people of India to feel and know the healing of Christ. And I said, well, do you think that's the most important thing that I would need, is to be healed? And he said, yeah, you're blind, that's what you need. And I said, actually, the most important thing is something that I've got already. And I would encourage you to try and share that too, not just with disabled people, but with everybody. And that is that we all need to meet with Jesus. That's the very, very most important thing in life, to meet with Jesus. It's not to be perfectly well and healed. It's not for me to get my sight, but it's for me and everybody else, all of us, to know Jesus. Because that's the important thing that is now our hope, and now and forever. But a lot of disabled people meet Americans like that, and not just Americans, other folk like that. I can't paint them all black, can I? However, but a lot of disabled people feel that they are failures because they're not healed. And that means that they're not good enough for God. And I was told by a big healer in a big church in London, Westminster Chapel, he came over to me and said, why didn't you come up to be healed? And I said, well, I didn't feel that God was calling me for that at the moment. He said, well, it's because of your lack of faith that you're not healed. And he tried to really put the guilt on me. And I said to him, well, actually, look at the story in Luke and Mark, and look at the 4 friends, those lovely friends who brought the paralyzed man to Jesus. What was it that Jesus saw? It was their faith, the faith of the friends. And I said to him, perhaps it's your faith that's a bit lacking. He didn't like it. But that's the most important thing, that everybody should get in touch with Jesus and be friends with Jesus. And we all need that barrier removed. There's no different gospel. Paul says there's no different gospel. It's the same God, same gospel, same good news for everybody, disabled too. And the visual demonstration of it was that the paralyzed man got up and left. He took up his mat and went out, and that's a visual demonstration that God has the power to break down barriers. He took up his bed, and that was him walking, but also connected with Jesus. And that's what we're about with Through the Roof. And if you'd like to help disabled people in different ways, because we're all a bit different, we all need kinds of adaptations and change, like my talking Bible and things like that, then we've got these roof breaker guides. You can get them from Through the Roof, and they can help you with different kinds of disability. But the most important thing is that you talk to us and ask us about what we need, and also make us friends. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Be friends with us. And that gets me on to those 4 friends. 4 very good friends. Who are your friends? What do you do with them? Do you have any friends who are disabled? And Alison and I worked together in Kosovo. And that came home to me in spades, as particularly we were at a school for deaf children. And some deaf girls came to talk to us. And I talked to them and said, what would you really want in life? What it is that will make a difference for you in your lives? And we were communicating. It was a very interesting way of communicating. I was talking in English, and then it was going through sign language into Kosovan, well, Albanian I think it was, and then into their Albanian sign language, and then into their words in Albanian. And then their words came back, Albanian, sign language, into English so that I could understand it. But what they said was, the important thing that they wanted was communication. Being together. Getting rid of the barriers between us. The friendship across barriers. The togetherness. What they wanted was friendship. Through the Roof has done a survey. That really got home to me, by the way. I've never forgotten it. I don't know if Alison remembers it, but I've never forgotten. But Through the Roof has done a survey. And the biggest problem in church access for disabled people is not the ramps, not the braille, not the sign language or anything like that. It's friendship. That's the biggest barrier, that we should make friends with each other and not seeing each other as a thing, or me as Mr. Blind, or that sort of thing. It's, you can be very polite, very supportive, but are you my friend? And that's that sense of belonging. And so those four, they were real friends of that man, and they got together and they brought him to Jesus. And there was, I don't know what they were like when they were walking along, were they talking and laughing? But they certainly were cooperating. And I sort of imagine them in my mind. I think they were probably quite strong, okay? And they probably had a sense of direction. They knew where they were going. Don't rely on a sat-nav, will you? It can take you astray. Technology is my bag. My PhD's in computing science, so I love technology, but it can let you down. It let us down yesterday when we were coming back from somewhere in Durham. We really got lost with the sat-nav and we went round and round in circles. Anyway, don't rely on that. But those four were focused on where they were to go. They were going to Jesus. That was their direction. They all pulled together in that direction. They needed to get that disabled person to Jesus. And they were determined, not fazed by the crowd at the door closed. And I wonder, and I was thinking about this the other day, I wonder if one of them was blind. Might have been. You can get, with four people, you can actually get along the right direction. Three of you know where you're going, and the fourth, Maybe one had a learning disability. Maybe one couldn't hear. I don't know. We don't know about those four friends. But all I know is they got together, and they brought that paralyzed man, got through the roof, and they brought him to Jesus. That's the message. We can all do things to help others get to Jesus. Us at Springboard, or me, or you, whatever your abilities and gifts, you bring them together, and that's what we do Through the Roof, develop people, help them to understand their gifts. We've got a Vital Link, it's a magazine, and in the last one, there was a story of a disabled person who felt very excluded in church because she didn't find anything that she could do. So, she was always a receiver and never a giver. And then she said, do you think I could light the candles in memory of people when we remember folk? And they said, well, that's a good idea. Because a lot of people feel very distressed and they've lost loved ones over this past pandemic and things like that. Yeah, people can come and light a candle just to remember them. So she's doing that, and she loves doing it. That's her gift of helping people to reflect and remember. One of the things we do Through the Roof is the Wheels for the World. And we give out wheelchairs and mobility aids all over the world to help disabled people engage with life. And I told you, we also give them a book, or a Bible as a book to help them to learn about Jesus. Anyway, all over the world we do this. And I remember one girl, she fell out of a tree when she was 11 years old. And her legs were broken and they never were repaired again. And so she crawled along the ground, I think it was in Kenya, and then we gave her a wheelchair specially designed for her, special shape, specially fitted. And then she said, I'm back alive. I'm back in the world, and I'm back and I can follow Jesus at church. So that made a huge difference to her life. The barrier was broken down. And what we have in lots of churches are what we call roof breakers. That's to try and get rid of the barriers, whether they're mental or whatever they are, in churches to help disabled people and everybody coming together to find Jesus. Together, working together so that disabled people can find Jesus as worshippers, friends, and leaders. When I tell this story, I usually start with what I'm finishing with, and that's Jesus. Because, really, the whole of life is nothing without Jesus. Why did those people come? Why did they crowd in to that house? It's because Jesus could do things, yes. He healed people, like lepers and Simon Peter's mother-in-law. He healed them. But healing is not, as I said earlier, the first priority for disabled people. And the thing that Jesus did with Bartimaeus, and there's a thing I would always encourage everybody to do, is ask people what they want. Ask people. He says, what do you want me to do? Now, Bartimaeus said, I want to receive my sight. So that's what he wanted. It's not my top priority because I get on fine. I'm doing very well because I'm successful and do all sorts of things. But so healing is not just what Jesus does, although sometimes we tend to just focus on that. Jesus also, in chapter 1 of Mark, spoke with authority. He commanded the evil spirit, go, and it went. And people were all amazed and talked to each other. What is this? A new teacher with authority. And do you know what? We could do with a bit of authority, couldn't we? I think we've all been a bit at sea recently, haven't we? Well, I'm not sure how long this Prime Minister will last. I do hope he lasts a bit longer. But we need a bit of authority and a sense of direction. Oh, I wish that they would turn to Jesus and seek to get that direction to govern the way we go forward as a country, as individuals, as a world. And I know people like Philip are doing a lot of work in that area. We need Jesus' clear, authoritative voice to speak into our day, our today. But we also need to be at home with Jesus, whether we are disabled or not. We need to feel that sense of belonging, receiving, yes, contributing and serving. And that's what Through the Roof is about. Helping people to receive and contribute and enjoy Jesus both now and forever. Transforming lives through Jesus with disabled people. I'd love you to join the Springboard group and me and all of us together to transform lives for Jesus. Amen.